And so, for our final chapter of the first book, we find John is attempting to flee the wall, having heard what happened to Ned. Sam is currently with him and trying to plead with him not to go. And it is noted at this point in the story that the moon is noted to be behind Sam, and it is round and pale, implying a full moon. It is also revealed to us that this takes place not long after the events of the previous John chapter, as John has now just had his bandages off, implying that it has been about 3 weeks since his injury. It is also revealed that upon fleeing, John has left the Valyrian sword given to him behind, as he is not so far from honour that he would take it even though he is deserting. And in his conflict he notes that the Southern people have better time with their gods because the Septs have someone to tell you the god's will in the form of the Septons, whereas with the old gods, the trees watch but they do not speak. Now, while John is debating in his own head about how he will actually get away and not be caught, because he is trying to figure out the tactics that will be used by the wall, he notes that he remembers Winterfell and Old Nan telling her tales of the children of the forest and Florian the Fool, which again brings up the ancient histories, and here shows us that there is indeed a connection between Florian the Fool, aka Bran the Builder, and the children of the forest. As John continues south, we get introduced to Molestown, which, interestingly enough, is a village which is 3/4 built under the ground in deep, warm cellars, most likely to survive the cold of the winter. Now, when John's brothers come riding down from the north in order to catch him, he hides in the forest. However, interestingly enough, it is Ghost, who John has not been able to locate for some time, that is the one that basically rats him out to them and gets him caught. Further highlighting the fact that Ghost most likely is indeed some form of spy or agent for a being controlling him, given that he has weirwood-like attributes. Most likely he is being controlled by Bloodraven. Now, returning to the wall, John resumes his duties and takes breakfast to the Lord Commander, who very quickly lets John know that he is well aware of what he got up to during the night. And notably, we see the Raven, as John enters, shouts corn, and then when the Mormont tells him that he knows what he did, the Raven repeats no. And he reveals that it was actually Maester Aemond who told him that he was most likely going to defect, and that they basically had a wager on it, which shows again that they are indeed training John in some way, as a watch was put on him to alert when he left, so they were waiting to see how he reacted and what he would do. John stands tall and decrees that he is not afraid to die for what he has done. However, Mormont points out that if he were to behead everybody who rode to Molestown in the night, then only ghosts would be left to man the wall, which is an interesting quote to make unless you consider the fact that the wall in the ancient histories, as I pointed out, seems very likely, based on the fact that it's made of ice, was created by the nature beings like the children of the forest. And so ghosts walking along the wall seems very telling for Mormont to point out, unless this is symbolism George was trying to drop to us. The ghosts are creations of the children of the forest, like the others, the white shadows. A ghost very much is a white shadow. We also find during this conversation that Mormont brings up John does not carry a grumpkin in his pocket to magic a sword, which is interesting, as I have pointed out in previous chapters that the whole concept of grumpkins and snarks seems to be a very, very convoluted old tale of grumpkins being children of the forest and snarks being Starks. And the grumpkins magicking up a sword might explain part of the last hero myth, where Azor Ahai creates his magic sword and also is known to barter with the children, so perhaps it is the Grumpkins or the children who magic him up a sword. We also get a lowdown on what is happening north of the wall at this point, and Mormont confirms that the cold winds are rising and the shadows are lengthening. Potter Pike, down at Eastwatch by the Sea, notes that vast herds of elk and mammoths are streaming south and east. And also, we find that there are also large misshapen footprints in the area too. We also find that rangers from the Shadow Tower have found whole villages abandoned, and Sir Dennis notes that they can see fires in the mountains blazing from dusk till dawn, massive, massive fires, which, as we saw at the beginning of this book, is part of the religion of fire. They are night fires to survive the long night, so there's definitely a red priest or magical fire influence going on up there with Mance Raider. And we also find that Corin Halfhand has took people within a gorge, and they swear that Mance Raider is massing all his people in a new secret stronghold that he has found. And they make note that they have lost many a ranger in the past year, and he makes note of Benjen, which immediately makes the Raven copy Benjen's name. Now, it's unclear if Lord Mormont is actually involved in the schemes around John or has his own schemes that are not connected in any way, as he notes that Ghost led them to the Whites and warned them of the dead men, which makes him think that, as others have pointed out, this is just mere circumstance. He does not believe so. So either he's lying here and he is part of the conspiracy, or he is not part of the conspiracy and he just happens to be able to realise that there is one. And then the Lord Commander reveals to John that he has had enough of the waiting and is preparing the Night's Watch for a full-scale march north, basically an invasion into enemy territory in order to seek answers.